Okay. The previous ones were really laggy. I thought that was just me, the like the preview, but turns out it was the video format it was captured in. The default one was just super laggy. I have no idea what's going on, but changed it and now it's much better. I'm gonna say this first because not because I want to say it, but just because I heard it and I don't know how I can use this information yet, but I want to remember it for the future. Okay. I They gave a story about a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we know self-fulfilling prophecies are true. There's many versions of it that, and there's like the placebo effect. There's, if you believe you're useless, you're going to stay useless. If you believe you can do anything, okay, maybe you can't actually do anything, but if you believe you can learn to become someone who has X skill, you can obtain X skill. But they gave a story in Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, the book, of a, an error in the inputs on a computer where the students who did well on the test was recorded as having done poorly, and the students who did poorly were recorded as having done well. So, as like the dumb kids versus the smart kids got their records reversed, and the teacher treated them that way. And when they discovered it months later, they decided to test the kids without telling anybody what had happened. And the kids that were recorded to be smart, and the teacher treated them as the students who actually are going to be more attentive and learn, did better on the tests than the ones who originally did well but were treated as kids who were, I guess, lost causes. There wasn't much detail about it. Um, I I already know about many self-fulfilling prophecies. This is an interesting example. I haven't drawn any conclusions about how I feel about it exactly, but I just wanted to say it just to help ingrain it in my mind. Because I also have to formulate how it's said. Okay, next. I wanted to mention a quote from 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, which, so in chapter 12, which is called Pet a Cat when you see one on the street, which I didn't actually fully understand this chapter. I didn't read it with great care, but there was it talks about the absurdity of life and fleeting moments that represent um, the the frivolousness of life, and he used cats to represent it because the cat may come up to you happily, may leave, may ignore you, and that's how life is. I still don't quite understand this rule. The rest are much easier to understand, but the thing is, he talked about the pain of existence, and he used an example of his daughter throughout the chapter who had many health issues that caused great stress and strain on their lives. And the chapter ended with a postscript that and first I'll read it to you. P.S. Soon after I wrote this chapter, Michaela, the daughter I mentioned, surgeon told her that her artificial ankle would have to be removed. So she had lots of ankle pain, and they ended up replacing it with an artificial ankle, I guess. And so would have to be removed, and her ankle fused. Amputation weighted down that road. She had been in pain for 8 years since the replacement surgery, and her mobility remained significantly impaired, although both were much better than before. So there were like issues with her, like I think at 6 or something, her ankle started hurting. She was told she had some serious bone or muscle issue, and they said that she would and later on her hips, they said she would have to replace her hip before she was 30. And like a few years later, they said her hip needed to be replaced now, and so on. All sorts of issues, very serious. And let me finish the quote. I just wanted to add some more context for the majority of me. I mean, I say the majority of you in case anyone's watching, but really it's for me so I can better remember, because I don't actually remember that carefully. I'm doing this so later years down the road I will have a better recollection of this story, because I thought this was very impactful. and this will have different meanings for different people. But anyways, um, although her mobility remains both significantly impaired, although both were much better than before. 4 days later, she happened upon a new physiotherapist. He was a large, powerful, attentive person. He had specialized in ankle treatment in UK, London. He placed, in the UK, in London, he placed his hands around her ankle and compressed it for 40 seconds while Michaela moved her foot back and forth. A mispositioned bone slipped back where it belonged. Her pain disappeared. She never cries in front of medical personnel, but she burst into tears. Her knee straightened up. Now she can walk long distances and traipse around in her bare feet. The calf muscle on her damaged leg is growing back. She has much more flexion in the artificial joint. This year, she got married and had a baby. And I took a screenshot of this page. Like the sentence finishes on the next page. But to me, this holds a special meaning. And different people will look at the same story different ways. What I see is someone who was so particular in his expertise with ankles that he now could be for someone irreplaceable, basically. So he has a personal level. He's able to provide someone a personal experience that is able to be completely transformative for their life. And that's much better than any being a generic therapist, physio, doctor, whatever. If you have one thing you're so good at that there's a small group of people who you can completely help with nothing except where they can't find the same help anywhere else. Maybe some other people with the same specialty as you, but people have small. The world is very big, right? There's only so many people each individual person knows. So you can even if you're only special for one town, for example, and everybody in that town who needs help with that issue comes to you, and you really solve their problem. That's enough. You don't have to be like world renowned or anything. But this example is just so special to me because everybody should look to have one thing that they get really good at and really transform people who need help for that one thing. Well, I say everybody, but not literally everybody. But I do think this is specialization. Specialization is powerful. Okay, next. There were some other things I was thinking. Oh, yes. Again, this is... The thing is, I know that in 5 years, I'm going to think that most of my current thoughts are stupid. That's true. That's why it's not about what I believe, but it's about recording what I think so that I can iterate on my thoughts and have a better view. But that only works if I remember and actively think more. Because, I know that some of the shit I thought 5 years ago, I find very stupid. Some of the shit I thought I did 7, 8 years ago is it's actually crazy. It's like when I think about it now, it's just so inappropriate for me to have even thought those things and like use those as a premise of communicating with other people. Now, my social skills aren't the best. My ability to articulate what I think or even think quickly, the process of having, think about what I should say and articulating it is takes too long, which is one of the reasons I'm actually making this journal in video format to train those skills. Some of the things I believed and used as a premise for conversation or conversing are frankly horrible. Yeah, okay, so let's just skip that for now. It's not that I'm unwilling to share, because I'm afraid I'll be judged, but it's just so horrible. I don't like. You shouldn't. It's not that it's horrible in the sense that I had morbid thoughts, but it's just horrible that it was bad influence. It's basically bad influence. Okay. Yes, shame. You should avoid shaming yourself. Now, this is it's like, here's the thing. A lot of the times when we think about things we should do or we do and we're not proud of it, or things we did in the past, and we feel ashamed at ourselves, that's a separate mistake. Like, we think that was a mistake, so we're ashamed of it. But the act of shaming ourselves is a mistake we should also, like, first of all, there's mistakes we shouldn't do, and shaming ourselves is on that list. So, I mean, I definitely was like self-deprecating, I guess, and also shamed myself, but not to like the level that some people do. And this isn't really a message to those people. I can only really speak from personal experience, because we see the world as we are and not as the world is, which is another quote from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm listening to it for the second time, by the way, because it's a great book. I do plan to read other books as well, of course, but one book at a time. Well, technically no, but okay. So, where was I? Yeah, shame. So, the act of shaming yourself is okay. So, shame doesn't give you real activation energy in changing it. That's the first thing, because it's ineffective, realistically speaking. Because then you're doing it to even if it works, you're doing it just to stave off your shame. That doesn't actually truly improve your life, And the most other thing is the shame itself, the feeling of shame actually causes health issues over long enough time. It's like stress. It's like dopamine, cortisol, whatever. It's probably some chemical that your body releases when you feel shame, or it affects your bodily function somehow, similar to stress. Probably, I have no idea, but I know that it causes issues. Shame is horrible, self-shame especially, but shaming in general is not great. But but also, like, that doesn't mean we should unconditionally support other people. Or ourselves, actually. So, the thing is, if you're... I don't have the answers for this. I don't know what should be the case. But I can only think about... Because, like, when I say shame is bad, now, like, you shouldn't be shamed by the people around you. That's bad, too. But also, you shouldn't be unconditionally supported, either. Because, like, this shit with that are supporting being fat, which is objectively unhealthy, is like some people have health conditions or genetic conditions or whatever that make it much more difficult for them to slim down. Yes, but that doesn't mean being fat should be advertised or endorsed or called beautiful, really. I mean, you can... I'm not saying like, if you're fat, you're unconditionally ugly, but, like, come on. It's so yeah, like, when I say you shouldn't shame other people, I know that's true, but also you should have a degree of controlling your reward systems is how I would say it, and controlling what you reward, which I will mention. I wrote this in the written journal a few days ago, but I'll mention it again. And in more detail, because it's in voice. And so one of the examples Stephen mentions in the book, and this is for I believe habit 5, which is called Think Win-Win. And he was invited to a company because he said that his managers aren't cooperating, and he wants Stephen to teach them to like hold have a cooperation program or something. Have some program that will teach his managers to cooperate. And so Steven replies, well, is it your managers or is it the system? Do you promote cooperation? And they replied, of course we promote cooperation. We hold meetings every day and we talk about cooperation. And he says, and Stephen replies, well, let's take a look. And the guy who was hiring him was annoyed because he felt that he knew what the problem is and what the solution is. He wanted Stephen to get on with holding the meeting or program and teaching his managers. But as Stephen walks around, he noticed that what they did was they would hold meetings, talk about cooperation, and then show them a picture which represents where which is basically a race for each manager to a certain metric. It's measured, some metric that they measure, and whoever reaches the finish line first gets a paid vacation for 2 or whatever. And it's like, so we tell you to cooperate, and then it's like, which one of you is going to win this vacation? And the reward system rewards one manager winning in a condition where everybody else loses. So you say, why don't you cooperate? Just work together and we'll make more money. But if one of you, the measurement of success is individual and not as a team. And so Stephen was like, well, this is the problem. It's, you can talk about cooperation all you want, but if the system incentivizes competition, then you're going to have competition. So you have to understand that people will play by the rules of the game. So if you want them to change the way they play, you just change the rules. Okay. And that, you should think about that for yourself too. What rules do you set for yourself to change your own behaviors? I don't have an answer. I don't even know mine. It was just the thought I had while reciting the story. Okay. What else? Okay. Never think in the negative. Yes. Okay, this is an obvious one. And everybody knows this. This is very straightforward. I even mentioned it on the first day with my example of changing your language, which is, for example, to replace won't until with get to win. And so I thought about I decided to actively think a bit more about this when I saw Simon talk about how if you tell a skier to not hit the trees, they'll hit the trees. But if you tell a skier to follow the path, they won't hit the trees. So you have to think in the affirmative. But that doesn't mean self-affirmation, right? Like I'm going to have $1 million. It's just, you have to think in terms of the steps. So instead of say I'm gonna have $1 million, say I'm going to wake up at 8 every morning without an alarm. Okay, set small individual goals, because when you think about it this way, in the case where for the skier when you're focusing on the path, you're not focusing. You don't look at the exit at the end of the path. You look at the section of the path right in front of you, and as when you reach there, you follow the next part. So like as you go down, you're always looking right in front of you, a section of area in front of you. So you don't need to think about what you're doing wrong. You don't need to think about what you're not supposed to do. And also when giving advice, don't say this is bad. You have to say you should do, can you tell me why you're doing it this way? Why don't you do it this way? Or something like that, for example. Or if something's obviously wrong, you can go, this should be done this way. But don't be, only if it's like clearly wrong, it can't get the same result, right? It's like if it gets the result or some, and it's not obviously inefficient or ineffective, then, you can ignore it. Okay. So there was actually other thoughts I had about this topic, but I don't remember them for now, so I'm going to set it aside, and I'll call it a day because it's about almost 20 minutes already.